We're in a weird spot right now because any other year I'm talking about the offseason, I'm talking about free agency, and I'm talking about all this stuff because it's about to be happening. And we have no idea what's going to happen. We're making speculation videos, we're getting excited, and now all of a sudden we aren't getting excited about what the possibilities of what's going to be happening in the offseason, at least not right now, because we're watching playoff hockey. And that's something interesting because of how this whole COVID bubble and how the whole world's been playing sports. It's interesting to look at how we are going to be handling the offseason because we still don't know what our offseason is going to look like, really. We don't have that much information regarding when it's going to start and everything like that because we still haven't finished the season in regards to all that stuff. So because of that, I want to take a look and talk about the Winnipeg Jets, and some other teams, I guess I should be saying, including the Pittsburgh Penguins, what they could be looking at this year in their offseasons. And the reason I bring this up is because I was recently blessed with seeing a trade rumor between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Winnipeg Jets. I don't know how much of this is still valid. All I know is that it is a genuine rumor, and I've seen it on a few different websites, so I wanted to talk about it. The rumor involves the Winnipeg Jets making a trade with the Pittsburgh Penguins to evaluate and to fix issues with both areas of their team. The rumored deal is involving the Pens sending defenseman Jack Johnson and forward Nick Bjugstad to the Winnipeg Jets, and the Winnipeg Jets sending the other way Mathieu, Perreault, and obviously maybe some other assets as well that are unlisted at the time. But that's the main rumor, and I want to talk about it. As a Jets fan, as a hockey fan, how do I view the trade? Let's get into my thoughts. Now, overall, when I look at a trade like this, I see it fixing issues on both teams, but at the same time, they're not trades that you want to make because, in reality, yeah, they can fix, but they're not going to make that much of a change in the long run, and they're not going to really impact the team, both teams, in my opinion, to make them competitive again. Let's look at this trade from the side of what the Jets are getting first of all. If this trade was true and the Winnipeg Jets were only giving up Mathieu Perreault, who, by the way, is on an expiring contract, and after not this season, but 2020-2021 NHL season, will be a free agent. Right now, he's carrying a cap hit at $4.125 million for next season, and after that, he's a free agent. So there is a lot of value in Mathieu Perreault going into next season for sure as a trade chip because of what you can get for him. He's on an expiring deal, an experienced top six player with playoff experience who can score you goals, who can kind of slot anywhere you really need him to slot into a lineup, and because of that, I think overall it would be a really good addition for any team and for Winnipeg to look at maybe even signing him, keeping him regardless. But enough about the French Prince. Let's talk about really what we're going to be getting in the side of what we're getting from Pittsburgh. Jack Johnson. We all know, if you're a hockey fan, that Jack Johnson is basically hot garbage. He's not a good player. He's on a horrible contract. Jack Johnson is signed until 2022-2023, making $3.25 million. Now, that's not horrible, but it is pretty big overpayment for a guy that should be making roughly around 1.2 maybe if you had to, and as you're really like a plug-in guy. In my opinion, at least, that's Jack Johnson. So, does Jack Johnson bring experienced defensive play to the Winnipeg Jets? Yes. Does he bring experienced defensive play that'll help the team? In my opinion, no. But let's talk about the other piece, Nick Bjugstad. Now, Nick Bjugstad is a really interesting pick, in my opinion, because if you had asked me 4 years ago, oh, Nick Bjugstad going to the Jets, I'm ecstatic. And I think almost every Winnipeg Jets fan is ecstatic. And I think a lot of hockey fans are excited because it's an interesting trade because he's a good contributing player that overall can help make teams win. When we look at Nick Bjugstad, he's not a bad player. He played very, very well on Florida for sure in his earlier years. Let's take a look at his stats real quick. When we look at Nick Bjugstad's stats, he's been a solid player. Back in 2013-2014, he had 38 points in 76 games. The year after that, 43 points in 72 games. And then after that, being a very consistent player on a very, mediocre Florida team for a lot of years, averaging right around the solid 40-point mark. His highest point total being 49 points back in 2017-2018 with 19 goals and 30 assists. That's not bad. But then we get into his other numbers. 2018-2019, playing 32 games, 5 goals, 7 assists. Then getting traded to Pittsburgh for the other part of that season, where he only put up 9 goals and 5 assists for 14 points with Pittsburgh. So when you look at the season, overall, not a good year by any means. In 64 games, he was not able to get enough points. He was barely able to crack 30 points, actually, when you look at it. He just got 30, which is not good enough for a top 6 guy. And then you look at last season, in 13 games, he only had a goal and an assist for 2 points, and that is to do with the fact that he was injured. But could Nick Bjugstad be beneficial on the Jets? I don't know. He hasn't worked out well in Pittsburgh for him the last few years in Florida. He is only 28 years old, and he's first-round pick, 19th overall back in 2010. He is a good player. The only problem is he out of gas? Is he done? Is his best years behind him? And it's a question that would have to be answered. And overall, he could play nice in Winnipeg. He could be a good piece, but I just wouldn't feel comfortable moving forward with him as a second-line center, and especially for the fact that Nick Bjugstad will be making a lot of money. And that is something that the Winnipeg Jets really can't look at. Nick Bjugstad is going to be making basically the same type of money that Mathieu Perreault is making, 4.1 for next season, and then after that being a UFA. So is it really worth giving up Mathieu Perreault, who is the same type of offensive player that Bjugstad is, if not better than Bjugstad, if you have to go there and say, and you're basically paying the same thing for him. So in there is where the real issue comes in. Do I see Nick Bjugstad as an upgrade to our second-line center? Yes. Do I see him as a good upgrade for a good piece in the French Prince? No. The only reason why is because look at this from the stand of the cap. Winnipeg would be giving up a contract of an expiring player who they could probably get at least a first for from an overpaying team at the deadline if Winnipeg chooses to trade him in that route, or they could get a mediocre defenseman in Jack Johnson who they're going to have to pay for a lot of time, really bad money, or they have another player they're swapping for who makes the same as Mathieu Perreault, who is worse than Mathieu Perreault, who they're going to slot in, not really knowing if he's going to work or not. So Nick Bjugstad is a complete wild card in this trade. And because of that, I don't see it working for the Jets. Now look at it from the side of Pittsburgh. If you're Pittsburgh, you just got eliminated by the Habs in the playoffs, and you need offense by the looks of it. Mathieu Perreault can provide some offense. He's skillful. I think Mathieu Perreault could be very, very deadly playing alongside Crosby on a power play there with how shifty he is in the boards, and he's a good player. So, does it help Pittsburgh? Absolutely. I can see why Pittsburgh wants to make this deal. The only issue is that it's not a good trade for Winnipeg because, yes, they're getting value back in areas that they needed on the ice. They need an upgrade in center. They need better defense. But they're not upgrading it, and they're not really giving up anything. Mathieu Perreault, in my opinion, is better used as keeping him for an asset and trading him at the deadline, depending on how we're looking, or using Mathieu Perreault in a better package to get a better player from a better trade offer. Overall, that is just how it should go, because when you look at the value of Mathieu Perreault being an expiring contract, on a decent, not being overpaid too much, teams will look to pick him up, especially for the fact that he's on $4 million. It can make a huge benefiting upgrade to your top six, or even into your bottom six, because you can slide him in anywhere and he plays very, very well, and he's a good overall hockey player. So, with all that information being guarded up, looking at Bjugstad's stats, looking at Johnson's stats, looking at Johnson's contract and Bjugstad's contract, comparing what it would look like to Winnipeg, and all these other issues, it's not a good trade for both teams, in my opinion. Mathieu Perreault is a good player, and he's an upgrade over Nick Bjugstad, and you lose Jack Johnson, so it's a win for Pittsburgh, just in the sense that they're shedding cap, and they're upgrading players that aren't working for him. So if you're Pittsburgh, I see why you go for this trade. But if you're Winnipeg and Kevin Cheveldayoff and his team, you look at what you have, and you have to really think of what you're getting for the value. If you were to invest the 3.25 that Jack Johnson is making into another player, such as Travis Hamonic, maybe giving him an extra $1 million or something like that, that is a much beneficialer move for you to make for your future, and overall it won't cost you anything in an asset because you're only picking him up on cap, and that is something that the Jets have to really look at. Winnipeg hasn't been a free agent hotbed for a long time, but I feel like this year's offseason could change, in the fact that a lot of teams could go to Winnipeg because not a lot of teams, I should say a lot of players could look at Winnipeg because they've got cap, because they're a competing team, and they're right on the verge of being a legit contender again, and because of that, I think that there will be defensemen that are on the free agent market looking to Winnipeg as a market, and I don't see anything that Jack Johnson brings being better, and especially at his current cap hit for how long it is, being better than any player that Winnipeg could get for less than him in the free agent market, or even a little bit more than that. They could spend $1 million more than Jack Johnson and get a much better player. So because of that, I don't see this trade being working. Cheveldayoff is not that stupid of a GM to make a trade quickly like that to try to solve two areas, but overall make more holes for him in the long run. So because of that, I don't see this being a good trade for both teams, although, like I just said, Pittsburgh does get some value in losing contracts. Even in that sense, they're not really making their team any better with Mathieu Perreault. They need a lot more than him to compete, so overall, it's not a good move, and especially with the fact that they would probably look to sign Mathieu Perreault. Overall, not a good move there, I don't think, for Pittsburgh. And I think this whole trade, while making sense and having a good surface level understanding of, oh, this solves holes, blah, 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 when you really look at it and put, your two thoughts into it, there isn't really a lot here for both teams in really upgrading, and I think that's what it would really come down to. So because of that, I don't see this being a trade that happens. I don't see a trade like this happening that's similar between the two teams, even though they both need to upgrade and they have areas they're looking to trade to upgrade in that sense. I just don't see it happening. Not enough value, too much cap being exchanged, and overall just a lot of mediocre talent being swapped for mediocre talent, and that's not what's going to win both these team championships and get them back to that competing level they want to be at in the playoffs. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below on whether or not you think a trade like this would happen between the Winnipeg Jets and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Let me know your thoughts on Jack Johnson, where you see him being traded. Let me know your thoughts on what Winnipeg should do in free agency. Let me know all your hockey thoughts down in the comment section below. If you're brand new to the video and you're brand new to the channel, just found it browsing around on YouTube, and you enjoyed the video, definitely consider dropping subscription. I know the title says Peg City Hockey, but we're a lot more than just a Winnipeg channel. I love to cover all different types of things, so if you're into that type of stuff and hockey content, definitely consider dropping a subscription. But without any further ado, thank you so much for watching the video. I'm Peg City Hockey, guys. Peace out, take care. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.